Melchior, welcome to the podcast. It's really good to connect.
Hello, Alex. Thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
No, it's I've been looking forward to this conversation. Richard, obviously, sort of the CEO of Healthpath, has mentioned you a couple of times to me now, and it sounds like you've got some amazing things that you do, and your knowledge is incredibly broad and deep from what I've heard and seen so far. So I'm looking forward to picking your brain. But before we sort of dive into today's conversation, are you happy just to share a little bit about who you are, what you do, and a little bit of your backstory?
Sure, that might take a while, but I'll condense it. Let's just start. I was born in San Francisco to an American father and a French mother. So I grew up as a hippie kid traveling San Francisco, Central South America, and I ended up in Ibiza, which is somehow where I tend to always return to. I try to escape, but it just keeps on pulling back. Then I lived for a few years in India and came back to Ibiza, and then I basically, growing up in the hippie, knowing about all of the esoteric side, people taking LSD and flipping out, I kind of got the other side of this new kind of like microdosing and stuff. Like I got the other side, and I was like, okay, this is a bit too chaotic for me. So I kind of like in my mind, I start to structure things. When I had nightmares, I would soften the images. I would change my dreams already at a very young age, say when I was 5 or 6. So I always knew of the power of the mind. And growing up in a chaotic environment where my parents separated and there was lots of traveling and moving around, I needed something to kind of like keep me on track. And somehow I chose football. But I wasn't an amazing football player, but I just really wanted to do it. So I studied it, I learned it, I really applied myself. And thanks to the power of this noggin here, I managed to become a professional football player very late.
Wow.
But by studying so much and by wanting to perform so well, I studied nutrition, I studied supplements, I studied exercise, fitness, mental strength. And when I was at the end of my career, say I was 30, 31, I got injured. And the doctor saying, we have to operate. Meniscus, MRI, we have to operate. We don't know what's going on, but we have to operate. And then I said, well, hold on a second. Let me see if there are any alternatives out there. So I tried Chinese medicine, craniosacral, atlas readjustment, and they all worked a little bit. And then I met a doctor who's a holistic doctor that also does muscle testing. And she said, look, go to the dentist and get an x-ray. And the x-ray came out that I had my wisdom tooth embedded in my jaw, and it was affecting my whole left side nervous system.
Wow.
I had the wisdom tooth taken out, and I never had to operate my knee. So, wow, this is something totally different. So the first chance I got, I found a course, and it just, as life happens, serendipity just strikes. And we had a pass weekend, like a free weekend, and there was a course happening in the next door town. So I started studying that, and I started working right away with all of my teammates. They would sprain their ankle in the warm-up of a game, and I would say, come quickly here, and I would do facial reflexology on them, and they would play the game, score the winning goal, and I would help people avoid their operations, regrowing their cartilage in their knees, or straightening out their backs. So a lot of this was like a real exciting part of life. And then I started studying coaching, so football coaching, but life business coaching as well. And I kind of, I've got a map of the body and how it works, and I've got a map of the mind too. So I'm really, really going along. And of course, the more you learn, the more you realize that you don't know. So, oh my God, things kept on piling up. But for about 15 years, I would use kinesiology, coaching, and then some forms of Reiki, energy healing, chakra rebalancing. But still somehow it was kind of like not quite enough. And then after 15 years, I met Louise Mita, who's the founder of Integrative Quantum Medicine. And I did the course with her, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been wasting so much time. Because basically she just put it all together in one, integrative. She integrates it all. And so then I went through all of the training, and now I'm a teacher. I'm giving the first course this weekend, actually. But what it does is basically says, if you're a doctor specialized in teeth, then you're a dentist, and you're not going to deal with the colon or the heart or the skin. You know, you're dealing with the teeth. If you're a car mechanic, you're dealing with cars, not with scooters. You know, just kind of the same kind of simple analogy. But basically, what happens with the quantum idea is that let's look at the microparticles, the quanta, but let's also look at the macro. Let's look at the whole picture. So holistic is not really meaning alternative, but of the whole picture. And then by connecting to you as an individual with muscle testing, with different kinds of tests as well, it's just kind of like, okay, if your issue is your right shoulder, it might be because you overexerted yourself. It might be because you've been carrying a backpack too much on one side. It might be because you have too much responsibility and are shouldering it, you know, so we go into the metaphysics of it. And I've studied with Dr. Joe Dispenza, with, you know, different alchemists with pendulums and frequencies. And a lot of it gets very, very, very deeply scientific. And then it all comes back to you. What's going on in your life? And for me, it has been, and I've done a lot of things. I own a restaurant. I've done wedding ceremonies, or I do wedding ceremonies. I'm a wedding celebrant here on Ibiza. I speak languages. I've traveled around the world. And everything for me is like, I need to figure it out. I need to understand it. And once I do, then I say, oh, cool, I can use this now. You know, I even teach languages in an accelerated manner. But for me, the main thing is like, I want to see the light go on in your eyes. I want to see you go, oh my God, of course. And the combination of all of the things that I've learned is to just synthesize it, keep it just to 3 levels. Your gut, your instinct, your intuition, what's going on down there, the feeling, the sensation. Let's use the word sensation. And then the heart, the emotions going around here, you know, which are not that many. The emotions are actually very few, the main emotions. And then afterwards, all the other ones are kind of like offshoots of those main emotions, of anger, of fear, of surprise, of joy, sadness. You know, these ones are basically the ones that there are. All the other ones fit underneath there. And then we have here, and here we have 2 parts of it. We have the programmed, taught, educated thinking mind that we have to understand the solution, and we have to do the scientific method and really get the proof. And then we have the part that we can activate when we're meditating, when we're dreaming, when we've got that flash of insight, when we're being creative, which is what happens when people take ayahuasca or microdosing or mushrooms. They go into that right away. But scientifically, it's measured. There is like the waking state, which is the beta brain waves, which are a bit faster. There is the stress beta, which is like when people go into a tizzy, or, you know, they can't make sense. They can't think anymore. It's that fight or flight kind of, or freeze, and you can't think anymore. So we're relying on thinking to make our decisions, but we can get off thinking very quickly, very easily. You know, hold your breath for 3 minutes, and then you'll see how much you're going to think. You're not going to think at all. You're going to survival.
Right.
So when you connect the label of the thought, oh, I'm feeling sad. So I'm feeling sad. So you're putting the emotion here, but then but that feeling, where is it? And it might be a heavy chest, or it might be heavy shoulders. So, and then where is the sadness coming from? And then you think, oh, okay, so how does happiness feel? Go the other way. And when you start to feel happy, oh, it's here, but it's up. It's like, oh, I feel a bit bubbly. I feel a bit pink, you know, unicorns and rainbows. And it's like, okay, stop being so silly. But all of a sudden, just by changing the main first thought, I'm going to change the emotion, and I'm going to change the sensation in my body. And this is the principle of EMDR, for example. So Dr. Joe Dispenza, he works with the HeartMath Institute, with other universities, and he does the brain scans as they're meditating. So he combines it all into one, which is a really genius technique. It does take a little bit of time and practice. And the way I work and what I teach is let's do it a little bit faster. and we can do it ourselves. So we don't need to have the special recorded meditations. They help, of course. We don't need to be in a room with 1,500 other people. We don't need to be meditating for 8 hours a day. We can reduce it to 10 minutes, 15 minutes. With the consciousness, the awareness of what we're doing, we can align the sensations in our gut, the feelings in our heart, and the thoughts in our mind. And we can access the other brain waves. So once we're out of the beta brain wave, we come into the alpha, which is a bit more when you're learning, when you're reading a book, when you're just relaxing on the couch, when you're hugging, when you're cuddling. And it's slower, and it just feels a bit fuzzy, warm and fuzzy. And then we go down into the theta brainwaves, which are really slow. And this is before your deep sleep, but you're still kind of like in that dozy state. And this is where good or deep meditation happens. And there's also a whole level of healing called theta healing. So if I can bring you to relax enough to go down to that theta brainwaves, and you can just, your breathing will balance out. And this is what the Heart Math Institute says. If your breathing is balanced, and normally they do kind of like a 5 in, 5 out count. And I've seen that you've had other breath workers on, and I'm sure they can explain in a lot more detail the different functions of the breath. Wim Hof will tell you how to get into the ice cold water, and other ones will tell you how to like rebirth with a different type of breath. And then the calming down normally is to balance the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous systems. So when you exhale longer than you inhale, you automatically calm down your brain waves, and you move from the sympathetic stress response active nervous system to the more relaxed, getting resources from your subconscious and connecting to your body. So when you can have a positive thought, so you go from sadness and you go on to happiness. When you have a safe, protected feeling, which is brought by your breath, everything's going to be all right. With the knowledge of the power of right here, right now, which is where we are, then the sensation in your body is going to be one of relaxation. So then you're going to be able to go to the toilet better. You're going to be let go of things. You're going to be able to appreciate what you've got. You're going to be able to love more openly. You're going to have to be able to understand other people, other cultures, even if they have totally different opinions. So you can go beyond the surface. You can go beyond that. So when that happens, all of a sudden life becomes very exciting. It's like, oh, we've got these problems. Yes, we've got problems. And there are two ways to solve problems. Either you look at them and you try and solve them, or you say, well, actually, let's not look at them. How do I want my life to be? And let's focus on building that. So by connecting to the sensations in my body, I said, okay, where do I have the stress? That person at work is stressing me out. So my left shoulder's tight. I'm like, Urgh. Okay, why are they stressing you out? Oh, well, they're stressing me out because they don't agree with me or something. Okay, well, what could their opinion be? Why? And what is their past? What is their history? Where are they coming from? Oh, of course, he's from Sri Lanka and he's a vegan, so he can never understand me eating a hot dog for lunch. It's not going to happen. It's like you killing a pig. It's totally different. We cannot see each other with the same glasses because we have different glasses on. Okay. So when you know that yourself, and you can reconnect to align your sensations of your body, your feelings of your heart, and your thoughts, and you're in a relaxed state with your heartbeat, with your breath, then everything just like kind of opens a little space. And this space is what we call the quantum world. And when you're in this space, and during a session, I will get you into this space, and I will be in that space as well, then everything happens almost instantaneously. So I can say, Alex, how's your right shoulder right now? Is it tight? Is it loose? Are you feeling okay? How is your right shoulder? That's a question.
Oh, okay. Sorry. It is relaxed.
Okay, good. But you had to go there to notice it. Okay?
Yeah.
So mindfulness, right? Or body mindfulness or awareness. Okay? So when we can get back into our sensations, then the fact that there's an earthquake in Guatemala right now doesn't matter. I can't do anything about it anyway, really. But what I can do is I can send out some love to the people that are there and hope that everything is okay and that they're safe and that they can recuperate quickly and rebuild, and that makes you feel good because you're being generous, you're being loving, you're being empathetic, you're sending out compassion, and that makes you feel good. And then when you see that they're suffering over there, then you can appreciate and have gratitude for what's happening right here. So we're going to come back to the right here, right now, but all the parts kind of have to fit in together, and that's how you will feel even better. Okay, if you're stressed out about, I've got to make this business have or reach these numbers by next May, you're going to stress yourself out if it's very difficult. Why do I choose next May? What's the stress? Oh, actually, I could make it by next July, and oh my God, that feels much better. And then you don't have the argument with your wife, and then you don't have the penchant for jumping on the crisps and watching the series of Netflix until 3 a.m. just to forget about the problem that has a easy solution. Yeah. Okay. I've talked a lot.
No, that's brilliant.
My story, but
it's fantastic. I think there's so much there to potentially explore and expand on. But one of the more recent things that really resonated there, and I think it's something I've seen a lot with my clients over the years and conversations that I've had with some of our customers at Healthpath, is kind of what you mentioned around sort of where are you allocating your attention? Is it kind of stuck on the problem, or are we looking for a solution? So I often talk about this idea of trying to kind of cultivate health rather than manage disease. And I think we often seem to have this inclination to try and manage the symptom that we've got and understand what's causing the symptom, and all of our attention is being placed on what's wrong, rather than what are all the things that I can do within my day that are going to actually cultivate a healthy, more free, energetic state that is conducive to healing in the first place. And what you've said there kind of, I think, really aligns with some of that.
Well, precisely. I mean, when do you go to a doctor normally? When you have some issue. So it's an emergency, it's a go and fix me moment. So in the quantum theory, what we're saying is that the observer affects the observed. So if I'm observing it, I'm affecting it. So I'm making it worse. But also the present moment now in our life is the result of all of our past thoughts, feelings, emotions, and actions. So if I have a problem now, well, I don't have to solve the problem, like the problem end result. I have to also take a look at what created it. And this is something that I find that often we don't look at. It's like, I don't understand why I've got a neck issue. Every week I have to go to the chiropractor. I've got a neck issue. So, okay, well, that's because of this. So I'm very tense here. Okay. And I can solve it with one question. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a violinist. It's like, okay, well, hello. Can you play the violin on the other side half the time too? And then we can balance it out. But if the doctor or the specialist or the person themselves is not going to ask themselves why, then you're missing out on the whole world of information. Because Crohn's disease is not the same cause for everyone. On a biological level, yes, of course. On an emotional or a mental level, not at all. You know, Crohn's disease could be, I don't feel good enough. Crohn's disease could be, I'm not being appreciated, or I'm not enjoying what I have in my life, or I've got to prove to my father that I am much better than him. You know, any of those. But if I just look at the end result right here, it's like, okay, so let's look at the whole picture. Okay, so it's the nutrition, it's what you put in your body. It's what you don't do with your body, your movement. It's what you're not thinking or what you are thinking. It's how can you relax? And, you know, the function of the intestine is to assimilate, distribute, and then eliminate. Very simple. You know, if your car is spouting smoke and bubbling, you're not going to just look at the exhaust pipe. You're gonna like, oh, maybe I should have put the other gasoline in or something, you know.
Right.
So with that information comes also the second part of the equation, which is the power. So if I can look at, oh, my habits are doing this, my thought patterns are doing this, my feelings are doing this, my life, I'm stuck in that job that I don't really want to do is doing this. So automatically I'm frustrated, so I'm bloating. Well, what would my perfect life look like? Well, how would I like my body to look? Do I want that six pack? Do I need that six pack? Or do I just want to fit into my jeans from last year? You know, or the bikini body, what's my end goal? Where do I want to go? So then from today, I can start creating that, They say the best moment to start a business was 10 years ago. The second best moment is right now. So because it's already gone. So let's not waste time on spilt milk. Let's change it to, oh, actually, I don't want the milk anymore. I'm going to have oat milk, or I'm going to stop drinking milk altogether, or whatever. So what is it that we're looking for? So let's put our focus, let's put our intention there. And where you focus, what you focus on is where the energy goes, and where it's what you begin to create. And you can go very deep with this, but just on a simple level there.
Yeah. No, it reminds me, I'm not going to remember the quote exactly, but it's along the lines of, we can't find a solution to the problem at the same level of thinking that caused the problem. So we have to kind of shift that perspective. Yeah. It really resonates with that.
Well, Einstein is one of my favorite ones in many different ways. And what he means by that, the way I interpret it, because then he has like pictures of him like, flying over rainbows and stuff like that, is going into that meditative state, changing the brain waves of trying to think logically, and our conscious mind only has the capacity for, there are different conflicting information, but say between 5 and 7 bits of information, or 40 bits, that's kind of the maximum we can handle. That multitasking we're really good at, not. But the subconscious mind is taking care of everything at the same time. It's regulating your temperature in the different parts of the body. It's making the digestion happen, or maybe not, because it feels offended because you haven't, hugged your child today. It's making you breathe. It's making you blink. It's making your hair grow. All of your cells are regenerating constantly, and somebody or something is taking care of that, and that is your automatic whole system. That you don't, if you had to think about that, imagine when you learn how to drive a car. You say, okay, clutch, gear, handlebar, blinker, look at the road and listen to the instructor. It's like, woof, well, wait a second. And then now you're driving and you're on the phone and you're texting and you're driving, and you just, you notice that you passed 3 cows. It's like, how amazing are we as humans, as bodies, as emotions, as minds? We're incredible. A lot of times we're just going along using the least of our capacities, and totally forgetting the access to the rest of this magical imagination, intuition, creativity, which comes from a relaxed state, from a floaty state.
Yeah. So what are some of the, I guess, other considerations or tools that we can consider to sort of facilitate that relaxed state? I mean, you've mentioned the breath, for example, but are there any other common tools that you use, or that we can kind of give as ideas for our listeners to sort of help with this? I'm thinking, based on what you've commented so far on brain waves, that binaural beats, for example, could be a useful tool for some people.
Totally. I've used binaural beats for about 20 years. Okay. There's also, there are different companies out there. Sometimes the message is not super positive underneath, so there are some that are focused. There are some things called paraliminals. So they're actually speaking two voices at different rhythms in both ears, with binaural beats underneath. So they take you in 10 minutes, you're in a totally different state. And some of them are helpful for quitting smoking, for losing weight, for getting the motivation to get up and do stuff. So, but let's say we are human beings. So we have 5 main senses, external. Okay. So these senses, we know them. So the music, the sounds will go into the ears here. But what we see is also very important. So if you take a stroll along the countryside, the woods, the beach, and just you will be massaged by the shape, the form, and also by the colors. Okay, the food that you eat, the perfumes that you smell. So if you're on a tram in the morning with sweaty armpits next to you and not seeing happy people, and in the shaken, you're stressing your whole system out right away. You know, that's why people, they come to Ibiza, or they go to Greece, or they go to even to the desert, and oh my God, it's so peaceful. I feel so good. And for some people, the first couple of days, it actually stresses them out because they're missing all of the noises of the city, of their habits. So it's like, oh my God. And then after 2 or 3 days, then they can finally calm down. They can really relax. Okay. There are other things that will do it, which would be a massage for them. So your body will feel, but you don't need to go to a massage for 2 hours in some spa and get deep tissue. You can also just stroke yourself. And if you do this at home, if you just stroke yourself and you just go like this, you'll just, because each cell is alive and has all of the receptors. So we've got sight, we've got hearing, we've got feeling, we've got taste. Eat good food, eat healthy food, enjoy your food. It's not just fuel, it's an experience, you know, smell nice perfumes. And so you have your 5 senses activated from the external, and if they're harmonious ones, they're going to calm you down right away. Now, if you go and you have the next 5 senses from the inside, then you have to start going in and hearing inside, smelling inside, tasting inside, seeing inside. So there's clairvoyant, clairsentient, okay? There's all of these. And all of a sudden, because there is no external stimulus, then you start to notice your own heartbeat. You start to notice how parts of your body are tight, and you can just touch them and loosen them yourselves. You can start to talk to your organs. You can start to talk to your stomach and say, "Oi, mate, would you like French fries, or would you like steamed vegetables with a bit of halloumi?" You know, and the intestine's going to go, or the stomach's going to go, that one, and you will notice it, and your whole sensation inside it will lighten up and brighten up. And say, finally, you're listening to me, you're looking at me, you're hearing me, you're understanding me, and this is where you take your own power back. You know, and the doctors and the hospitals are there. Of course, they're there for emergencies. They're not there for maintenance that well, and they're really not there for prevention. So that's our job.
Yeah, I love the way of thinking about it in regards to just thinking about our senses and how we can, I guess, how we can use them, as you say, to facilitate relaxation. And one of the things that came up there was, there's a great book called Well Stressed by Sonia Lupian, and she's sort of a PhD researcher in human stress physiology, and she has the acronym NUTS. So in her research, one of these 4 things has to be present for us to sort of experience the situation as stressful, and it stands for novelty, unpredictability, threat to our sort of identity or ego, or a sense of low control. And what you mentioned there around, you know, if you live, let's just say, in inner city London, and you've been there for years, and that's now your sort of familiar, I wonder whether, you know, then going to the countryside where all you can hear is the cows mooing and the birds chipping and things like this.
Or the cicadas.
Right, yeah.
Spread people way out.
Yeah, so, and I see this sometimes from just, I guess, more of a psychological perspective, which is, if we're not familiar with relaxation for whatever reason, or if we don't feel safe, and therefore we're keeping ourselves busy as a distraction from our stuff, the technical term, sometimes it can be really hard for us to actually go into that relaxation response, because as you said earlier in the conversation, it's in those situations, I think, that stuff can start to come up to the surface for us to process and to integrate. But if we're not yet ready, then we've got this kind of war going on almost.
Well, try to sell somebody that needs to meet their deadline on Friday to meditate, and it's really not going to happen. I'll tell you a little anecdote. Before lockdown, we were in, my girlfriend and I, Catherine, we were in Thailand. We were on Koh Phangan, and we were on a nice bungalow right by the sea. And there were some frogs in the little stream behind. And they started to be a bit stressful. You know, I can adapt that way, but for her, it was like these frogs. And then there was another bird, and it's a bird that goes boo, 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 something like that. And I'm not very good at this. And she would go, oh, where's the bird? Where's the bird? And really get annoyed with it. Okay, so now we're watching a series on Netflix, and it's happening in Thailand, and they have the house, and they have that same sound in the background. And I said to her, remember that sound? Oh my God, I miss it so much. So the connection is, at that time, it was stressful, and now it's a memory trigger of a time of nostalgia, of nice relaxation on the beach, drinking coconut water, you know. So it's funny how at one point what stresses out the next time is what is our memory. So if you're used to the city and you go to the countryside, the change of rhythm is too great. So then you feel stressed out or bored in the countryside, and then you go back to the city and there's an ancient tale from India. There's a series of little fables which are part of kind of the way of teaching of Jataka tales, Upanishads, or Buddhist theory. And it's at a market, two women become friends, and one woman sells flowers and the other woman sells fish. Okay, and they become friends and they chat at the market. And then after one market, they say, hey, why don't next week I stay and sleep over here in the village in your house, and next week you come to my house? I say, okay, great. So the flower lady sleeps at the fish lady's house, and she cannot sleep because it stinks of fish, until she gets some flowers and puts them near her head, and she sleeps like a baby. Now, the fish lady the next week goes to the flower lady's house and has exactly the same problem. She can't sleep because the smell of the flowers is too sweet, too strong, until she gets some fish, puts them next to her head, and sleeps perfectly. So we are creatures of habit. So we have to also keep an eye on the habits that we are creating. Okay. And one just easy way of looking at it is, say you have a dashboard in your car, right? It says oil, speed, water, gas. Our bodies are something like that. So if I lost my hair, why did I lose my hair? My hair loss is telling me that there's a little red light that went on that I totally ignored. Okay. And maybe it was I needed to de-stress. You know, I could go to the hair specialist and they'll tell me, oh, well, it's because it's genetic. Your father was bald at 28, your grandfather is bald, so it's genetic. But then somebody says, well, actually, no, it should be genetic on your mother's side. And my mother's father is not bald. He has a full head of hair. So wait a second here, what's going on? So there are lots of different theories that conflict. And we kind of have this heat-seeking missile of the mind to justify and to find the reason. And then that's okay. We've got it. It's okay. We can explain it away. But looking at it as this analogy of a dashboard, and I look at my life at that time, I was, of course, I had huge stress. I was going through a divorce. My football career was on its own. I was injured, and it's like, ooh. So I can even go further. Why was I injured, and where was I injured? Oh, it was your left knee. What was happening with? Okay, you didn't want to bend down, to kneel down to some higher authority, and so you had resistance. So it clicked, you know. So the let's say metaphysical or symbolic symbolism of each of your body parts has a purpose. So when you look at it this way, then you say, oh, you've got digestive issues. Okay, well, what don't you want to accept? What are you not accepting? What are you not swallowing? What? Okay, and you're having lower area and bloating. So, well, what are you not letting go of? You know, so it becomes very logical. And you know, Louise Hay has written lots of books about this. There's some other doctors like Claudia Rainville in Canada. There are lots of different ones, Liz Bourbeau, and so they focus on this. So they connect the medical part of the functionality of each organ, of each part of the body, with the emotional component, with the meaning behind it, you know. Then we can also go into our words, you know, what do we say all the time? Oh, he's a pain in the neck. He's a pain in the neck. He's a pain in the neck. Where do you have your pain? Oh, in my neck. Well, who's a pain in your neck? You know? So these little keys are amazing, because it just like, oh yes, of course, I had an argument with my brother-in-law, and oh, of course, I still have to massage it out. I still might have to go to the chiropractor, but the solution or the resolution will happen much quicker. And if I go to my brother-in-law and say, hey, you're bugging me, stop doing that, you know, stop being such a beep, then it will solve even faster, and I might not even have to go to the chiropractor.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating to hear the different levels of thinking that can be required, and what you can reflect on from this perspective. Yeah, I was going to ask earlier, you know, what does it look like to come and see you? But I'm starting to think that every single session is just so wildly different based on the complexity of, you know, each and every individual ultimately.
Yes and no. You can ask Richard. He'll be happy to share.
Sure.
I'm not going to share details of the session, obviously, but one way I would just like have you lie down on either a massage bed or a couch, and I'll sit next to you, and I'll just put my hand behind your head, and here I will balance out your brain frequencies and calm you down, and I'll give you a little bit of visualization work too, and then you'll just fall into the rhythm of your body. And by me physically touching and harmoniously, slowly softening you down, I come into contact with you. I also go down into that theta doorway up into the quantum. And then what I do is I go through a whole flow chart. I go through all the physical issues, all the metaphysical, the symbolic meanings, all the mental things that could be. So what are your expectations? What are your beliefs? What are your programs? Are they yours? And just align them all. So your thoughts, your words, your feelings, and your actions are all coherent in going in the direction of creating the perfect future that you want. And opening your heart to loving yourself, to accepting yourself, to forgiving yourself. Say, hey, you know what? You fell down. That doesn't mean that you don't know how to walk or don't know how to ride a bicycle. You were distracted. Something happened. Okay, forgive yourself. Get up. Brush yourself off. Learn from the situation, from the issue, and move on. Grow, because that's what we're here to. We're here to experience and to grow. So we have to enjoy that too. You know, we can't not do it, because that's not living. We have to do it. We have to live. We have to breathe. We have to love. We have to get out there. You know, being in a glass bubble is not gonna, you know, it doesn't work. Then I'll check out the emotional components. You know, is it joy? Is it fear? Is it worry? Is it sadness? Where is it coming from? And the way I check this, because I'm not talking to you, we're having like a telepathic communication, but I'm also using muscle testing to get a confirmation on my side. Okay. So it can be a bit woo-woo in that sense, if you will. However, when I explain to the people what I've seen and what I've done, it's spot on. And I often don't ask them for any history. I don't want to know what's going on. I will say, do you have any pain anywhere? Here. Okay, great. But that's all. After I finish checking all of the different areas of influence, so the physical, the metaphysical, the mental, the emotional, the psychological, what are your phobias? Why are they there? When did they come from? Let's clear them. What are your habits? You know, what are your addictions? What are your feelings of limitation? You know, oh, I can't learn Spanish because I'm a woman and I'm 40 and I've never been to Spain before. I said, well, that's not an excuse. Let's do it. You know, so it's like there is the possibility. And then we go into two that are really more potent, which are like the psychic ones, which are like the collective consciousness. You're just feeling that, oh no, that's just because it's what it's done. You know, why do you drink tea at 5 p.m.? You know, and why do you have it, you know, builder's tea? And why must it be P&G instead of Tetley, or, you know, all of those things? Well, that's because. Well, look at it. Why? Do you really enjoy it? Or has it just become such a habit? There's a silly movie out there about an American football coach that goes to coach a premiership team. And it's a silly movie, but he can't drink tea. You know, he's like, what is it? And it's looking at it from a different perspective, totally, you know. Anyway, silliness aside, So on the psychic level, it's things that are beyond your actual thinking that you've just taken on automatically. And a lot of those are allergies and chronic issues and just feeling of displacement. Sometimes when you wake up in the morning, it's, oh, because your alarm clock woke you up and your brain waves are still way down in delta, and you're trying to be in beta, and it doesn't work. It goes in harmony. It goes in sequence. So that feeling, when you wake up sometimes, oh, yeah, okay. And then there's a spiritual aspect, and the spiritual aspect is really like, what are your values? What are your beliefs in the global sense? And how do you connect to nature? And when you're thinking about this, it's like, oh, wow. And then you can go into topics like karma and past lives and family tree and all of that. But just on a purely just pragmatic, logical level, it's like, do you actually take time to stop and reflect every day? Do you pray? Do you thank the food? I've traveled a lot, and in all of the cultures, there is a blessing of the food before they eat it. And I thought, oh, how cute, or how whatever. But when I started studying the quantum energy fields, basically what they're doing is they're making sure that this food is not going to be poisoned for them. They didn't have microscopes before. They couldn't tell whether there's bacteria or viruses. They couldn't tell. So they had to trust, does it smell good? Does it look good? Does it taste good? But also, is it energetically good for my energy field? So if you have a pause before eating something, and some habits are saying, pay attention when you're eating. So don't be watching the Netflix and your Instagram and eating the fish and chips, because you probably will have a stomachache afterwards, because there is no connection. So let's eat the fish and chips now in good company. Let's have the pint. Let's do the whole tradition. But let's leave the phones out of the distraction out of the way, and let's really. And how does it taste? Oh, no, it doesn't taste that great. Sorry, what's going on here? The oil is old, or the fish is not good, whatever. So you're avoiding, but at the same time, you're ensuring that you're modifying. There's a Japanese guy, Masaru Emoto. He's written books about the messages of water. And you can affect, just with your thoughts, the molecules of water at a distance, even if the molecule of water is in a lab, in the glass plated, in the freezer. And you can modify. And he's proven that. He's got a couple of books out, Messages from Water, or Crystal Messages, or something like that. And this is proof, in a way, which people can deny, but it doesn't hurt to try, that prayer, focus, intention actually works. Reiki masters doing distance healings, all kinds of, I do a lot of distance work as well. And we can do it right now. I said, look, Alex, lie down and do this, and I will work from here, and it will still work. Okay, I still prefer the in-person, and so will you probably, but it still works.
Yeah.
So it becomes exciting. The possibilities are totally open.
Yeah. It really, you've mentioned the word already, but there's definitely a theme throughout what you're saying around sort of this mindfulness and self-awareness, and sort of returning to our senses, I guess, in many ways.
That's a good way of putting it. Yes. There's a woman called Esther Hicks, and she channels beings called Abraham now, and she has lots of quick things. And return to your vortex, she calls it. Basically, it's about being myself in harmony, will then interact with yourself. If you are in harmony, not so much until we become in harmony. And so then, like a diapason for the sound, it will make everything around resonate with the same frequency, right? With the same tone. So with human beings, we are also emitters of energy as well as receivers of energy. So if I smile and I look at you, I dare you not to smile, don't smile. It's contagious, like with a yawn, So if you walk down the street and you see somebody down and this, you're going to protect yourself and go away. right? If you see somebody in bright colors and beautiful model having a photo shoot, smiling down, la, 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 even if it's gray out there, you're going to have a great day. That's how gullible, susceptible we are. You know, look, if I do this to you, how do you feel?
Good.
Right? And if I do this to you, what's going to happen now? What's next, right? And if I do this to you, you can feel your energy feeling drop in your body. So let's just get back to this one. It's much better. And you know, if you can try it at home, it's just that simple. So we are constantly being affected on many subtle levels, layers all around us, constantly. And when we are not aware, so self means feeling your senses inside, what's going on. Mindfulness, bodyfulness, and heartfulness. And when you can align those three, then everything just starts to happen easily. You find your parking spot. They give you the best croissant in the shop. They give you an upgrade, etc., etc., etc. You know, so it's like you don't fear the worst. You prepare for the best. You program the best. Excuse me. So it becomes like the whole thing would be self-empowerment. Because once you know this information and you have access to your inner compass or to your inner knowing, then everything that's coming from the outside, you can tap it away because it's not, or you can embrace it because it is. And all you have to do is connect to that sensation inside. You know, with food, is this apple good for me? And you put it against your body, you let out a breath, and you see what happens. Is your body going to rock backwards, or is it going to just kind of tilt forwards? And the apple probably, unless it's a super chemical sprayed apple, will probably go forwards. The glass of water, if it's good water, will take you forwards. The sugar will most often take you backwards. But if you've been eating a lot of salt, the sugar might actually take you forward to balance it out in homeostasis. So I can't say that sugar is always bad or salt is always bad. The body is always looking for that homeostasis, for that balance. And it's not a static balance, it's an always in movement balance. An incoming and an outgoing, an incoming and an outgoing. And that's the balance of thoughts, of emotions, and of sensations, of food. You know, we eat food, we drink water, but we take in negative stuff, we take in positive stuff. So we have to filter that out as well and choose, what do I want to hear? What do I want to see? What do I want to feel, taste? And that's going to be what I'm creating, because my life is created out of what I'm doing.
Yeah, that concept of being an emitter and a receiver, that really reminds me of, again, you've mentioned them already, the HeartMath Institute and their research around our electromagnetic fields that we're emitting. And I think I'm right in saying each organ essentially is emitting one, and obviously we have a whole electromagnetic field that we emit that is influencing other people's, and theirs is influencing ours. But they have that beautiful term of psychophysiological coherence, which is ultimately what you've been describing, this synergy and, I guess, energetic freedom of our organs working coherently, which allows us to, the way I think about it is it's kind of allowing for free-flowing information at a cellular level. So the cells that make up the organism, us, are able to communicate to the best of their ability on all levels of communication, if that makes sense.
Very eloquently put. Yes, of course. And when you're stressed, when you're tensed, that energy field, and you can see it with the Carillion photography, like the aura levels or the chakra levels, but you can notice it. Your aura or your energy fields will expand when you're feeling good, when you're feeling safe, when you're feeling loving. When you're feeling tense and angry, it really shrinks. There's a woman called Barbara Brennan. She's written a book called Hands of Light. And there are some photos in there. And it's really nice to see there, about, I think, 12 photos. It's just a fold out open page. And the photos of each of the chakras with different issues. And you can see the colors change, They're little circles, vortices. It's really interesting. The way we in the quantum world, let's say, and I borrow from Dr. Joe Dispenza, or even with Bruce Lipton stuff of measuring the energy fields of plants and what happens when they get attacked aggressively. They will pass the message to each other, and they're all the mycelium underneath the ground, they're all connected too, but even on an air energy level, they're all connected. So if you're going to cut a celery, all the other celeries and lettuces around, they're going to say, help. And it's just, it's like, what? But that's how, when you go really deep down, and that's where science becomes really interesting, is that we're all connected. So we are really connected. And it's, when we pass away, we will be cremated, buried, or at sea, or whatever. And we will be disintegrated, but not just by something, by some things. And there will be worms, there will be bugs, there will be other animals. If you die in the desert, you're going to be eaten by hyenas, sorry. And everything else, it's just natural. And it's not a bad thing. It's thanks to that we're all here. So it's really, we are connected.
Yeah.
So we just call it coherence, right? Heart coherence, mind coherence, physical coherence. We just go for that. So it's kind of, oh, you're being selfish. No, I'm being self-empowering in order to feel good, so that I can emanate a beautiful field, electromagnetic. Normally the electro is the mind and the magnetic is the heart. So these two together, so of course the magnetic is way bigger than the electric, but when you combine them, then you have the power. So you go from the monkey mind to kind of like the mastermind, right? And basically, this is like connecting to the light, because everything feels good. And then you see the beauty in everyone, and you understand where the Taliban are coming from. If you understand the history and what's going on there, it's like the information that they have received tells them that the Western oil grabbing people are the bad ones, because that's what they've learned, that's what they've seen, that's their version. And we cannot change that, and we cannot understand that because we're on this side. We cannot. But when you can step up and above and look at it from a panoramic vision, you say, oh my God, of course that makes sense.
Yeah.
They used to have green rolling fields and the top culture of the world and the hanging gardens and marvels of, the court of Akbar then. And now they have to struggle and look for stuff in the desert and hide in caves and use old Russian weapons. It doesn't fit somehow. So they're on the end of a bad deal, so they're fighting back. And a lot of what we get is also interpreted in different ways too. So for us, when we connect to the human condition, then you can really understand the child in Calcutta or in Dar es Salaam that is suffering, and all they need is to be seen, a bit of water and a bit of food and a bit of love, and they will blossom to be the next president of the country, but in a good way, not in a corrupt, manipulated this way.
Right.
That is kind of like we are the beacons of light to create a better world. And we start off with releasing our angers, our sadnesses, our stresses, our issues with our parents that are not going to change anyway. So we might as well forgive them and move on. So yes, when I talk about quantum medicine, it's kind of like all encompassing, but it's about life. It's about, if you want to take, heroin and hang out in the park, why? What took you there? And then you talk to somebody, it's, oh my God, but when you take heroin, you're in this like total bliss area. And it's like your spirit recognizing that it's free of the body. Then you could say, okay, well, if that's what's happened, that's what's taking you there, well, then, that's your choice, right? As long as you're not harming everyone else around you. But even those people, there might still be a way to bring them back. And that is with love, with understanding, but also with them making the decision, them making the choice. Because if they don't want to do it, you can do whatever you want, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
We went on kind of a world journey there.
No, it's a bit of a whirlwind topic, ultimately, isn't it? There's a lot to a lot to consider and reflect on. But I think that's kind of empowering in many ways. There are so many different lenses that we can take to look at these things. And I think one of the mistakes that we can make, especially with some of, how should I put it, with sort of some of, I guess, modern science, and we can think about the sort of concept of functional medicine here. One of the criticisms many people have of conventional medicine is obviously that it's very reductionistic. So as you said earlier, we go and see someone who specializes in one area, but their knowledge of how that one area integrates with another area is limited because of their training. But even at the functional medicine level, I think we take somewhat a reductionistic approach sometimes. You know, the idea that everything is associated with the gut has some truth to it, but have we overplayed that to some degree, because the gut is only as healthy as the host, i.e. you or I, and therefore everything that you've been discussing still needs to be considered within that context. So I'm a huge advocate, to use your term, of that panoramic view and taking the step back or up, and thinking about all the different things that are at play that needs a little bit of attention ultimately.
Well, it's totally exactly like that. I mean, you go back to the discourse of Pasteur and what was his name, Beauvais or something like that. I can't remember his, where he talks about the host rather than the bacteria, you know, rather than the illness. So this is like 150 years ago. But both work. However, one can't exclude the other one.
Right.
So I do need the microscope to notice that I've got E. coli bacteria. Yes, I do need the microscope for that, right? But I also need the macroscope, you know, let's just play with words here, the macroscope to say why. And then when I can see that whole picture, and then, you know, there's a Chinese practice of feng shui, you know, where the harmony of your surroundings is very important. And that goes back to what we were saying about the senses, about harmony in your environment. So if you're living in a basement that's too small for you with your 6 brothers and sisters, because you're an immigrant from China, and you all have lung problems. Well, lung problems is not enough breathing space, not enough clear air, you know, the humidity problem, you know, so, and then the bacteria problem of the microbes of all sleeping together and not having, you know, I'm taking an extreme vision here, but it's like, oh, well, why do all of those people have, you know, diabetes? Or, well, look at it. What do they eat? Yes, but how are they living? What hopes do they have? Where is the sweetness of life if there's no hope? It's going to be in sugar. It's going to be in something sweet now, but not in like dreams of glory or of success or of peace, because it's just not possible. It's blocked by some other humans on a higher caste level or on a government area, you know. We don't die of hunger on this planet because there's no food. We die of hunger because other people didn't let us get to the food. It's people. So when we can come back to ourselves and be self-empowered and say, okay, yes, there is something here. What can we do about it? But let's take it up on a big level. You know, if you get a cold, the name says it, you get a cold, you're not feeling warm. You're not feeling warmth. So you're not feeling love. So you're not feeling hugs, right? And so Chinese medicine, you got a cold, have some spicy food, right? In Europe, we'll give Vicks or you know, and then we say, oh, let's take some vitamin C too. So we can look, but let's look at the whole thing. Have that spicy soup with red pepper, and you'll notice that the red pepper, the spicy pepper, has loads more vitamin C than the kiwi does. And you're doing 2 at once. You're getting the vitamin C plus you're eating, so you're going to have a runny nose, and you're going to get the stuff that has stagnated, that is infecting itself. You'll get it out, and you'll disinfect it at the same time. Okay, and then what are you going to do? You're going to get to bed. You're going to stay warm, and you're going to have some people take care of you, so you feel loved, and the cold is gone. Okay.
Yeah, beautifully put.
It's fun. It's like being Sherlock Holmes and trying to investigate and find out where the issues, what's the issue. Aha, the butler did it.
Brilliant. Melchior, I'm mindful of your time, but is there anything that you would like to sort of conclude with, or sort of maybe re-emphasize, if not?
Yes, that we have the power to find out and to know what is causing us to be unhappy. And we also have the power to find out and to know what does make us happy. And if we focus and we put our intention and our attention and our energy on what does make us happy, other things will just fall away naturally. So use everything that there is out there. Use the doctors, use the vitamins, use the orthomolecular wizards, use massage, use love, use friendship, instead of waiting for somebody to come and save us, that puts us in a victim mode. Let us be heroes of our own life, of our own creation. Say, what can we do to make our life better? What can we do to make the world better? If we wait for the politicians to decide to change our lives, we might wait a long time. So let's see, how can we help them reach the right decision by creating the right environment for that. So it's all about self-empowerment, of taking charge of your own life, of your own thoughts, your own words, your own feelings, and your own actions. And when you're aligned with that, then you have a lot of things to learn, because there's a lot of really magical information out there. You have a lot of things to see, because the world is a magnificent place and not everybody is suffering. A lot of people are having the best times of their lives now. So the news that we receive, filter it, because that news is pre-selected from all the news of the world just for this little area. So look at other bits of news. And it's not all lies and manipulations. A lot of it is true. In Mexico, they were dancing on the beach. In Brazil as well, in Africa too. And it's like, what's happening? Why are we all suffering here and locked up? So it's just to be aware that at the end of the day, it's right here, right now, where we're living. And this is the only place where we can actually make a decision and we can really take charge of ourselves. And really, there are a lot of amazing things out there that can help us. But the biggest thing that's going to help us is when we see the world as a better place and we can take charge of our own lives.
Beautiful. Melchior, thank you so much. I think that's a very powerful way to conclude our conversation today.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Thank you.
Really good conversation.